So, how then would you determine what a conspiracy is? Because oftentimes we have the term conspiracy theory, conspiracy theorist thrown around quite a bit. And it gets to be a term which people get tired of hearing and which they automatically associate with craziness, nonsense, unprovable claims. So the way that you would prove the difference between a conspiracy theory and a conspiracy is to show correspondence. So in other words, if you make a statement, a claim, put forth some theory of some sort, you have to then back that up with corresponding evidence. And the average person, if they hear the term conspiracy theory, automatically they shut down after that. If you have a conspiracy theory to present, once they hear those magic words, they will automatically discredit anything that you have to say after that point, and they won't listen to evidence. They cannot be reasoned with after that. So what you have to do is show corresponding evidence first before you present your theory. And most people are trained to automatically discard or reject any belief system which is not already in accordance with their existing belief system. And this is actually a good thing in many ways. It helps people to defend their minds against lies and to hold fast to that which is true. So that's a good thing. But the fact of the matter is that if we're humble enough to admit it, you and I do not know all things. Only God does. So, that being the case, you and I can believe things and accept things as being true, which are actually false. So we need to examine those things against reality, against corresponding evidence, correspondence, in other words. So, a conspiracy theory is a theory. It's a supposition. It is a claim, an idea about some shocking thing, which most people do not believe or are not aware of, or something along those lines. Usually a conspiracy theory, it has to do with going against what society, what government, and what the media has declared to be true. The interesting thing, of course, is that the more evidence that you gather behind any theory, the more possible and eventually probable it becomes. The less likely it is to be untrue, the more evidence you gather behind it. So, when a person can present a claim, present a conspiracy theory, so to speak, the more evidence they gather behind it, especially government documents, the more of that they can compound one document on top of another, on top of another, on top of another, official news reports and so on. The more of those sort of things that you get, the more probable the conspiracy theory is, and the more possible it eventually is. In other words, the more likely it is to actually be true, even if it's in conflict with your current belief system. If the evidence shows that your current belief system is false, then your responsibility to line up with the truth is to change what you believe. And for many of us, that is simply unthinkable. It's very, very difficult. I remember the first time I heard a major conspiracy theory, and it was in conflict, of course, at that time, with the things which I believed to be true about my government and the society in which I live. And so I wasn't one to just automatically write it off as nonsense. I at first said to myself, that's crazy, but I'm going to look into it a little more, because if it is true, then that would be a very, very shocking thing indeed, and it would be something that I would need to be concerned about. And the more I looked into this topic, the more evidence I found to support this shocking claim that I kept hearing on the internet and YouTube videos and so on. The more evidence I saw, the more arguments I heard, the more video I looked at and could see with my own eyes that things couldn't possibly have occurred the way that I had been told, the more I began to believe the conspiracy theory. And the more I began to view it not as a theory, but as a conspiracy. So, when we're encountering things that are in conflict with our own belief system, we should be open to researching those things for ourselves and looking into them deeply for ourselves, especially if the implications of those things actually being true are life-changing or society-changing or globally changing in some way. If it concerns laws and ordinances that would have to be changed because of this particular thing being true or untrue, then that's something you should take interest in, because those laws ultimately are going to affect your life and the way that you live and the way that you operate in society. Those who can just accept anything that the government gives to them or suggests to them or implements without resisting it, well, I think that's the opposite of a patriot. A patriot would be someone who asks questions, who wants to preserve their freedom, preserve their country the way that it is, not change it into something else.